Some more sick week prep. The never-ending saga of customizing a 3000 GT. So everything's working pretty good. However, I have front. Thanks. He's over there. However, I have front axle issues, and it is because of the extreme angles. Not sure if this, go watch one of my old videos, you can see it. But that angle there is about 20 degrees vertical. It also is this way too, which is why I have the front wheels castered forward a little bit to help. So can't really move the diff back any further with the current oil pan because it slopes too much. Can't move it up, same, slopes too much. So I got a different oil pan right there. And it's flat and comes back really far. Now, the next problem though is the starter is over here on the passenger side. And if I try to move it back too much, it will hit the starter. Regardless where I'm gonna put it, I will have to drop the diff to remove the starter. Not ideal, but that is how I'm gonna have to do this because one, I wanna move the wheels back because I hate how it looks. Two, I need to straighten out that angle on the axle front to rear. So it's only angled on one plane. And that's where we're at. So I have 2 weekends before we leave the sick week. 2 weekends to work on it. So I'm going to drop the diff, drop the oil pan. I still don't like the oil pressure when it's hot, so I'm going to remove all the crap on the front to get to the oil pump and have a replacement pump for it that's a higher flowing deal. And then put this oil pan on, obviously new oil pump, and then remake the front diff subframe. So, which requires it to basically all be cut out and redone. The good news is there's really only like 4 to 6 mounting points, and they all mount to stock like chassis locations for the stock subframe. So it's, 6 standoffs, a tube, and 6 tubes, and then some cross bracing. It's not the end of the world. It's just getting it, where I need it, and start welding underneath the car. So that's the only, and then I have to turn that into an oil catch pan underneath the motor too, because that's required. So, a lot to do, but it's enough time, so I'll get it done. Blah, 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 blah. But before I get the car up in the air and start dropping and cutting, I wanted to get the oil pan done first. It's just a universal deal, and I needed to put an oil return on it, and I just like using barb fittings. So this is a 3/8 NPT, and it'll go to a 5/8 barb. Before I teed them in, and both turbos went to one drain, this time they're each going to get their own, and it shouldn't have to worry about it quite as much. I had to really be careful with the there's like a little dip almost, so this should be easier and cleaner. But man, I don't know, I should have ordered specific bungs for this, and I just got some crap from the Rural King hardware store, and it does not weld very easily, but got it welded inside and out. Hopefully it doesn't leak, and and just got to do the other side. So you'll see it's got a little bit of an angle up for drainage, and a little bit of angle this way to hit the turbo. So I got to do basically the same thing on the other side. Had to be over a little bit more, and to avoid the alternator, and also avoiding the bolts, so that I can get the pan on and off without much trouble. All right, that side went a little easier. Both of them on. Should be good to go. Hopefully no leaks. If it does, JB Weld. Get in there. Jamming system DAX. Get ready to pull that off. Got everything else off. Damper. Manifold for the coolant. Got a bunch of the coolant pipes out. Hey, got the diff out. That was fun. So this crazy contraption is back out. I'm gonna cut basically everything apart and reuse only some of it, but like these back bars are getting bigger diameter tubing, maybe some of the top bars also, and yeah, beef everything up. I'm gonna try to figure out how to come across and under. That'll need to be removable though, I believe. So I'm gonna try to figure out how to come under it and then tie these two together. I have the front mess off, and then also have room to get to the oil pan. So I'm gonna drop that down, change the oil pump and a new pickup tube, and then start putting it back together. I do have to get new jack stands though, because between my car and Micah's car, I'm out of jack stands, and I need to level the holds and level the diff in there so that I can start tacking everything back together. I already have the car leveled in the garage. So it's leveled front to rear, side to side, and then the motor's centered in the car already from previously. So I just need to be able to get the diff in there exactly where I want it, and then start tacking the subframe together, drop it back down, and finish welding it, and put it all back together again. Oh, and get it aligned, and get the drive shaft shortened. So that requires other people. I actually do a pretty good job of eyeball alignment, and then I use an app, Angle Finder or Angle Pro or something like that on the phone to help with at least the camber, and then some tape measure and eyeball for the rest of it. Does a pretty good job, but I'd like to get it aligned before we go, since it's going to be driving, I don't know, 800 to 1,000 miles at sick week. So stay tuned. Oh, more fun. New pickup tube in. I had to change all of this. I had some spacers on it to space the last one. I don't know, different places. Actually, the last one had to be sucked up a little bit to get the right pickup clearance. This one had to move all the way up to get it out of the way of the tube, and then I actually had to put it over top here in a spacer to get this down, and everything looks pretty flat. And taking into account the gasket, I have like 3/8 of pickup tube gap, so should be good. I'm gonna finish up down here, put the oil pan on, and then get a start finally positioning the diff. Well, it stinks cutting up your work, but that's what I had to do. So had to chop everything off. Some of it may be able to be reused, but more than likely not. So now I'm out of jack stands, like I said, so I got to get some jack stands in the morning, put that underneath there and see how it fits, and then start cutting and welding. You can see my favorite tools: sawzalls, portaband, hammers, more hammers, adjustable hammers, more adjustable hammers. All right, trying to use some lighting for once and have this leveled and mocked up. It was a pain. Took me a couple hours just to get it where I wanted it. So it's, I mean, all the way up against here. I wrapped a little bit of tape around here just to have a little bit of a gap, but then the webbing is actually hitting on both sides. So when I drop it back down, I'll probably take a little bit off of this webbing. But it's in there. All right, it's Saturday back in the garage. I put in some hours last night after work and got some cool stuff done. So this side over here is all tacked on. Saw that earlier, but then did another bar up here and then one that connects to the motor and then have little angle piece brace in there too. That all needs to be finished welded. And then this side, same deal. This side doesn't need the connection to the motor, but I have the connection to the mid plate and then two up here, plus the bottom one with the control arm, and then obviously connected to a standoff there. So that all needs finished welded, like I said. But it's all in. I adjusted the caster front to rear to get the wheel centered before I had to move it all way too forward and still had ugly, bad angle on the control arm. So, or CV axle. So all good now. When I use a jack to lift this up, there's about a 15-degree angle up on the axle. We'll see what it is when it's actually down on the ground. I'm not sure if the jack is loading the same amount of pressure from the chassis and everything on here or not. But so 15 degrees, totally good with that. Probably good at 20 degrees. Any more than that, not good. And before we had like 20 up and 20 back basically, or 10, 15, 20 back. So all of this work, totally worth it. So now, again, next step, drop it down, finish welding. All right, countdown to sick week continues, and I'm making some progress. I ran out of argon and still had to make a oil containment, retainment, whatever device. So that's what I came up with. It's just a aluminum sheet and some channel. It has to be 2 inches tall, which this is. Riveted it, and then just some Gorilla duct tape to seal it off, which doesn't even say it has to be sealed. But once I get argon on Monday, I'm going to go back through and zip this in a couple of spots, you know, through here, just stitch it. It's not going anywhere, but this does have to hold up to approximately 155 miles an hour. The car is geared to hit the 8,000 RPM at 155. So mostly for the 8th mile stuff now. Question though, since we're talking about that, I'll be running the quarter mile, which gearing's not ideal for that. And I can't go quicker than 850. So I've been back and forth. Do I use it as a test session for Rocky Mountain Race Week, because these are the same tires, and try to rip it out of the hole and through the 8th as quick as I can, and then just back the boost down or even let off the throttle for the 8th or 1,000 foot on. That's not going to be very consistent. In theory, I'm supposed to be trying to win and be consistent and run whatever dial I put in at the 850 to whatever 880 mark. Or do I, so option one, hit it hard, use it as a test session, and then back off and see if I can get consistent like that. Or two, just kind of roll out, obviously launch a little bit, because otherwise it's not fun. And just, do a normal 880, 890 pass at 155. So I'm back and forth. Can't really decide. Obviously, hitting it hard gives a greater chance of breaking something and not making it through the week, but breaking something also finds weaknesses. So I don't know. Comment. Let me know. All right, got this done, and I have some spray adhesive for the pig mat and notched. These notches really don't matter because it's sealed off with the diff mounting system anyway, and then that one's just bottom of the diff was catching and couldn't get it up enough, so it's going to seal off anyway. And then even if it did seep out a little bit, if the worst would happen and we put rods through the oil pan, this is going to catch 99% of it and then soak up the oil and obviously catch pieces and stuff too. So we're going to get this up underneath there and then show you guys what it looks like then once it's up under there. All right, that is as tucked as it gets. It is flush with my diff mounting system on both sides, and just because of the angle, it hangs a little lower than the transpan, and oh, it's tight up here. Drive shaft clears barely, and it catches the back of the oil pan. Like I said, I'm gonna touch these with a welder once I get argon. And then front, same thing. Actually covers the whole front steering rack and front of the motor. So pretty cool, and it's level with, basically, it's hard to tell here, but basically level with the front diff or the front lip. Pretty close. But it's literally as tucked as it can go. So, and we'll do the job. Hopefully it stays on. I can hang off of it. It's connected by two M6, or two on each side, 4 M6 bolts. I'll see if there's any other mounting places to catch it at, but it's mounted 2/4 inch steel, so not bad. So one final main component for me to even be able to drive my car at sick week and not have done all of this for waste and bought hotel rooms, blah, 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 was to make the steering actually work. So when I moved everything back, I thought the steering rack would end up about where it was when I was rear wheel drive. Definitely not the case, apparently, because nothing was really working. So the steering shaft here has to, see if I can get that to focus. There we go. Comes out, it's got a double U-joint, goes down, and then another U-joint down there. So with that, it would flop around if you don't add Heim joint. So there's a Heim on this D shaft, and that is all fine. But the only reason that could work is because I ended up having to space down my whole steering column on the inside so that the angles weren't as extreme. So then spacing it down, it actually makes it more comfortable. I didn't like how I had to have it tilted up. So now it's more of a straight shot. A little harder to get in and out of, but actually more comfortable to drive. And it's nice and smooth, no binding. I don't know what the squeak is. I'll find that. But yeah, it's good to go. I just have to, it's just tacked right now. So I have to, and it was a hose clamp for mock-up and wire for mock-up. So I gotta go in there and brace all of that really good to the bar. And yeah, there'll be some bracketry and good to go. So that's awesome. And we will make the trip, assuming we don't get snowed in. So we're supposed to be on the wintry mix side of the big 100-year storm. So we may get a bunch of ice. That's coming Thursday, but we technically don't need to leave till Saturday. You guys will probably see this Friday, and we'll be on the road. Hard to see, but that's welded. Oh, there we go. And little squeaky, not much. It's the rubber seal that the shaft goes through, but good to go. Next, I'm gonna stitch on the catch pan. All right, this ought to be fun. Okay. Not working very well. Try this again. Oh, this is fun. Got a little bit there. There we go. Didn't start well. Had a little too much heat and not a big enough filler rod, because I am feeling a bit of a gap, because just the way this thing fit, it started to bow out when I shoved it in there. So that'll be fun, but I'm gonna get all of these. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I would like to get all of the corners and then a couple of spots through here. It's not pretty, but it's welded. And got the back and a little bit on the sides. Definitely, you know, the bottom panel, definitely much stiffer than just with the rivets. So I'm happy, should be good. Well, there is a winter snowstorm coming in tonight, and I figure now's as good a time as any to test out, make sure everything's still good. Definitely need to adjust the steering. It pulls a little to the right, but mostly the steering wheel is just off center. So I'll center the steering wheel and do a little toe adjustment, but last time. This will be my last chance of driving the car before we load it up. So at least that's what I think based on the weather. So it's 35 degrees. The rain is getting really cold, going to be sleet soon. I tweaked the steering wheel alignment, tweaked the camber and caster on that one side a little bit more, and the toe, trying to make a little more axle clearance. It sounded like it was binding up, and playing around with it, it did look like it was bottoming out in the axle cup. Not enough movement. So let's see.